What's good with the YouTube? A convict's perspective. It's your boy Flacco coming live and direct, and with the Senor Rojo with a little bit of energy this morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, man. I see you guys out there, man. Hope everybody's doing good on this weekend, man, for sure.
Yeah, so on today's topic, man, as you guys can already see by the title of the thumbnail, we're going to be talking about the big salad bowl. Salinas, Califas, Salas. For years, who's had a very, very extensive history within the NF organization. A lot of solid C's came out of there, a lot of hermanos, a lot of even righteous northerners and norteños that have contributed to the cause for years. So we're going to tap in a little bit about Salinas, that we all have a little bit of past experience, man. Go ahead, Rojo.
Well, man, you know, a lot of people always wonder why Salinas is considered headquarters on the streets or whatnot. Whether it is or not officially, it's not. You know what I mean? It's just a regiment, just like any other one, you know. But the reason why people from Salinas homies function at such a high level, man, is because there's been generations and generations of very, very well-schooled individuals that came out of there. And not only that, man, these gentlemen that came out of there have passed the game on in full to others. You know, like everybody knows I'm from Contra Costa. And, you know, there's educated people there, don't get me wrong. But a lot of the game that we got, and I'm guilty of this myself, actually, man, was kept to myself. You know what I mean? And others kept it to themselves. They deem people, oh, he's just, you know, a tagger on the streets, or he's just a dealer. He's never been a gangbanger. And so the information, the knowledge that we have accumulated over the years, and the holes and the shoes, and, you know, and through our older homies and shit, isn't really passed on. Well, Salinas, man, that is not the case, man. Your grandpa, your dad, your uncles, your cousins, all your homeboys, all get that same wisdom. They're out there running Klecha on the streets, bro. They're in juvenile hall running Klecha. They're running Klecha in man, late elementary, early middle school out there, and instilling all the values and concepts, you know, that any northern, you know, NF umbrella group should be getting. And that's why there's some areas like Salinas and parts of San Jose and other places that are so far advanced in their expectations in prison, you know, that it looks like almost two different groups. You know, when I used to roll up to Contra Costa, bro, you know, after I got some good education in the 6 yard and stuff, before I even went to the Bay, I was appalled at how homies conducted themselves, but that was partially my responsibility to change that. You know what I mean? And I looked at it as almost a lost cause. In Salinas, they're not doing no lost causes, man. They're educating them dudes and schooling them dudes and preparing them dudes to function at an elite level, to make, you know, their hood, their city, the organization look the best that they possibly do. And they do a good job of it, man. Every single day they're on their youngsters. They're on their squares out there are getting educated. You run into people that are, you know, out there managing a Costco maybe, and they know how to get down as a homeboy if they were a homeboy. You know what I mean? And the females out there, it's a way of life in Salinas unparalleled by any other place, bro. And that's just keeping it 100. No knocks to no hoods nowhere, but that's just the cold hard truth, brother.
Yeah, Salinas has had a long, extensive history, especially with the NF, man. Some of the most influential members from the NF from the 70s, 80s, and 90s have came out of Salinas, even up to this day. You can go far back to the Gabriels, who post Babo's impeachment, right, in DRJ, okay, there was two factions that were in leadership positions at the time before they came up with a mesa. That was the Folsom Six, which consisted of Black Bob, Pinky, Chente Rojo, Manzanas, Corny, and the last one was Woofy. Those were the Folsom Six that were left in charge. In DVI, you had two people left in charge, which were both the Gabriel brothers. And you can go as far back as to the Rochas. The Rochas have had a long, extensive history of NF members. You've had the Campas out there, MC, Copas from Gallegos from Salinas, who was co-author in assisting Corny writing the bonds along with Brown Bob. So they've always had a part as far as influential members, as far as NF members way back in the 70s. And I think a lot of it has to do, one, Soledad was there, was really close to Salinas. So there was always some type of communication with a lot of brothers that were getting out, that were paroling from Soledad going to Salinas. And as we know, besides DVI, one of the strong establishments for the NF at one time in the 70s was also Soledad and was also Chino. We also know about Vacaville too, but we're going to talk about the main prisons where they were sending the majority of the NF members to. And so Salinas has always been able to, when you have a small community, which I think their numbers are maybe at 180,000 now, but back then they were probably at 100,000. When you have a small community with so many influential members, you're able to pass it on from generation to generation. I mean, we tell jokes that, at 2 years old, the first words out of a kid is 14 bonds. You know what I mean? They're coming out learning how to make pedazos. I mean, there's kids that are 14 years old in Salinas that already know the bonds and format and are in some way assisting their hood and in some ways already partaking in regimental activities. So Salinas has always been a significant established regiment as far as, everybody talks about Fresno being the first established regiment, but what people don't talk about is before Fresno, San Jose was one of the first, what you call experimental regiments that they had established at that time, along with Salinas. Fresno was the first one that got up to operating, to pushing the regimental business, but San Juan and Salinas, believe it or not, I mean, I get a lot of extensive information and research, and I read this along the lines of some notes that came from Black Bob, from his a little bit of I won't say debriefing reports, but some shared information. And it says the first experimental regiments were actually in San Jose and Salinas, which I thought was kind of interesting because we've always been told it was Fresno. No, Fresno was the first established regiment. But Salinas throughout the years has been able to contain its environment. I think a lot of it has to do is they're not a big populated area that has over 1 million people. They've always been a small town, and they've had a lot of major hoods out there like East Marqueta, Casitas, Fremont Street, Santa Rita, the Bahamas, Ronda Boys, and all kinds of other smaller hoods. But those are the hoods that were more around my time era. And what people tend to forget, when we're doing our spills right here, we're discussing our time era, the hoods and people we were interacting with, and the history that's been taught to us. And so you can go back all the way to MC was an influential member, like I said, Copas, Perico, who was known, they say that he had confirmed 33 or 36 hits that's been listed in the NF history, right? And you can go on to some of the influential NR members throughout the years. Individuals, see, it wasn't just Salinas, it was all those small cities around it too. Chole, King City, Greenfas, all had influential good soldados, because when they went to the county jail, it'd be one of the most close-knit, tight-knit types of functioning programs compared to other facilities. Like you said, Contra Costa is a little different, Alameda is a little different. Santa Clara functions pretty much up to par because they've always had a lot of influential NF and NR members. But see, what ended up happening with a lot of these internal struggles, and what people started focusing more on Salinas was those early 90 indictments in San Jose. When half the righteous NR members and NF members, half of them they just flipped. And from there, people started to look for Salinas as far as for their guidance. And see, a lot of other reasons why they have declared kind of Salinas in a way is looked at as headquarters is because there's always been a lot of numerous C's that have stepped out there. In addition to what the feds did around 2000, I think 5 or 6, when they appointed Baki as a captain, and they wanted all regiments to report to him. So of course he's from Salinas, and if all regiments are supposed to go through him and he's in charge, of course you're going to look at Salinas as headquarters.
Yeah, just like Pelican Bay was back in the days, everything came from the Bay, so that's automatically headquarters. And from what I'm gathering, what it looks like, man, if you look at it, they're doing the same thing in Florence as they were in the Bay. With Skip and Corny both being in Florence. That's where everything seems to be coming out of, even though Tibbs is over there on the other side of the country and whatnot. But yeah, man, you establish a stronghold where you got a lot of individuals with either experience or rank or both. And, it's automatically going to be looked at as well. What's coming out of Salinas right now? What's coming out of the Bay right now? What's coming out of Florence right now? What was coming out of Santa Rita right now? You know what I mean? So, you know what I was tripping on, man? I bet even the juvenile hall system in Monterey County, I bet them youngsters are rolling up their mattress in the morning and all that stuff, bro. You know what I mean? That's how I picture them dudes, because, I think me and you have talked about it before, but I was on the 6 yard one time, and you know where I came from in the Bay, so my schooling was pretty decent. And they pulled 3 young NF cats I say young because that was the age at the time. They're not young no more, but it was Suave powder and Roque, right? So I was in charge of their education as far as functioning on the guys. You know what I mean? And them dudes were already sharp. Don't get me wrong, they were hermanos already. You know what I mean? And they had some schooling. They're from Salinas. They're gonna have that basic education. But I've tried to school some other C's from other areas, the same kind of education or not, because my particular expertise really is the streets. You know what I mean? Because I've never got those Buck Rogers like parole dates and them huge 7-10 year stretches.
Yeah.
I've been just a hit and run kind of guy. I've been fortunate, but it's so much easier to deal with people from Monterey, and Santa Clara, Stanislaus, what's Stockton, San Joaquin, right? That's Stockton. All those areas right there, you know what I mean? That already have a good basis in their county jails and in their communities, man. It makes they put out soldados that are battle ready, essentially. If you look at it from that point of view, they're ready to hit the ground running. They only need a little bit of fine tuning. Whereas you reach some other people from some other hoods, man, it's a complete buildup of that individual. Don't get me wrong, every individual is equal and deserves the same opportunity. I'm just saying from a schooling standpoint, them guys are coming into prison ready to rock, and no matter what the task is.
Exactly. When you would have Northerners come into any household that was from Salinas, right? I would trip at how up to par they were. A lot of them almost functioned like they were hermanos. Yeah. And I'd ask, what's your status? You know what I mean? I'm just a Northerner. And I'd be shocked at it. Like, I'd be like, your educational attainments and your schooling is better than a lot of these bros over here that I've been trying to work with to get them up to par. So I've met a lot. Like I said, I've worked under a lot of C's both in prison and on the streets. In prison, I had a working relationship. I worked under Fred Dog, Fernando Gonzalez, Fred Dog from Salinas, rest in peace. He passed away from cancer, in good standings in corporate. I was his RSD, so I worked under Bubba, Robert Hanrahan, in prison. I ended up taking over Bubba's position when he went to corporate. And there was numerous hermanos that I've met over the years doing interactions with. And it's funny how you mentioned Powder, because I met Powder first in 2001 on the streets. And it was because we were both had the same alternative channel out there in the streets in Wino Zarowski. So Wino ended up putting us in charge. And Wino ended up going MIA. You know what I'm saying? He burnt me for 2 pounds, bro. He owed me like $4,600.
Are you talking about Wino that used to be my celly?
No, Wino from Oakland.
Oh, okay.
He was Wino at that time. And you can go through the documents. You can even go through their case files. It even says that Lizard was actually under Wino and was only fulfilling that position temporarily till Wino got out. And so all the authority that Ashley actually technically had, that was supposed to be, he was only supposed to hold that position temporarily. He was placed in that position by Wino. Wino's the one that submitted all the complaints against Cuete and all them, and Skip. He tried to get all them crossed up and deemed at that time. I heard that straight from Wino's mouth when we connected. So I was interacting with Powder. And so, of course, he's incommunicado a little bit. And I'm a little bit in contact with some individuals that are out there in the streets that are in contact. They're going up to visit Skip and Goose at that time. This is before Goose went back. And so I'm even relaying messages that are coming from Wino. Because when Wino first got out, they had a code name for Ashley, which was Rachel. And he threw his name out there. And when I forwarded it up there to the guys up there, they were fucking like, hold on, that's who fucking told on us. You know what I mean? And so they told him to, step on back. And so then I get in contact with Powder, and I go up there to meet up with them. And they don't have no resources for anything going on at that time. And so I said, check this out. I'm working out there. I'm generating money. I'm kicking in. You know what I mean? And we're trying to establish everything, get in line with everything that's going on with the guys in Oakland. We're following all their directives, and we're not supposed to relinquish anything as far as our contacts. I said, I can reach out for you guys, but you may want to wait. And that's when that power struggle was going, because he brought that up to me, and so I started doing business with Powder. I said, I can supply you guys, because my ex used to live in Castroville, had family right there by North County High School and these new houses. And so it's an all Mexican community. There's no cops. No one's going to call the cops. I mean, you know what I mean? When I say a Mexican community, I mean everybody there is from Mexico. They're all new houses. It's a different program. So he liked the area. So what he used to have to do was I would meet someone, one of his individuals, right? Drop off the work. And then I would go meet him like somewhere about 10 miles away. When I would meet him, we would have to go and drive. I would follow him and we would get off certain exits, get back on. You know what I mean? We would have meetings at parks or we'd go to even a pick and pull and we'd get out and we'd walk around to make sure we're not being followed. So Powder was game tight as far as on his security. And that kind of impressed me because I never had time to really do all that, man. Like, I'm like, man, I don't see no one following me. I mean, I've been driving for 5 miles. If they have a GPS on me, they're going to find us either way. But there's no one following us. But he still put that kind of security procedure on him, man. And I thought that was a trip. And see, for me, how I personally first started working with individuals from Salinas when I paroled and got plugged in by Wino to Ashley. Ashley, at that time, Goose was locked up on a violation. So technically, I was supposed to plug in with Goose in the San Jose regiment. But Chico was living out there in San Jose at that time. So they ended up plugging me in with Chico, Robert Rose. And I started interacting with him. We started doing a lot of business. And, you know, I learned, I watched how he was doing things and I paid attention. And I was able to emulate that in what I was doing. So he took a liking to that. Like where I started with a QP, it got up to a half P, it got up to a couple Ps. And he's like, man, he goes, and I always came with money on time. Whereas there was other people that were working with him, they couldn't even bring it. It'd take them over a week to get half the money. And so me and him started going out, hanging out, parties, barbecues. And he started introducing me with other people out there in Salinas, which another one was someone called Gabe Carachoa, G Money, you know, which me and him became really, really close. And, you know, they used to sit there and laugh because they used to say I looked like Bubba. You know what I'm saying? And so they said, oh, you look just like Bubba, Robert Hanrahan. So they used to call me, oh, you little Bubba, Chico and all them, right? And I used to go up to Prunedale to his house. There'd be other homeboys there. And that's how I met Boxer. That's how I met Wino Gallegos. That's how I met all these other NR members, NF members, even though I was out there in San Jose, you know? And so it's discussed that I ended up functioning in the Salinas regiment, even though I was in San Jose. And the way that happened is Bubba came into Quinmas, right? When I was sent to almost parole. And Caja was there, Mark Rodriguez, this is before he flipped. Your best friend Dancing Bear was there. You know what I mean? Of course, he was on walk alone. They wouldn't let him out. And then who else was there? Gonzo from Livermore. So me and Bubba start communicating. I said, man, you know, everybody says I look like you. I got him on the kite. You just send it to him. You know what I mean? And he started laughing. He goes, man, I heard about you, man. He goes, Boxer was talking about you. He goes, all right. He goes, I communicate with him. I give you my number. So I said, all right, here's my number when I get out. I wouldn't say about a week later. Next thing you know, I'm getting a call from old boy. You know what I'm saying? And saying, you're going to come this way. I'm like, well, I thought I was going to come to San Jose. He goes, no, if I say you're coming this way, I'm going to make it happen. So sure enough, next thing you know, I was functioning in Salinas at that time with the Salinas regiment on special assignment, working with us, different crew. We had at that time, we had Young Buck, Angel Chavez. We had a cat named Roper, who's Deco, BRS, my boy, a couple other people. I don't want to mention their names because there's certain people I won't touch on here because you know, even though I'm living a whole different life, I know some of them just don't want their name put out there. But we had a strong little crew, man. And it was interesting because everything that we had going on in San Jose, there was already a San Jose regiment out there. And so we had to be careful what we were doing.
Sorry for the interruption, y'all. We had a little minor technical difficulty. Here we go.
So they already had a regiment in San Jose. And see, I was out there before all this when we were the ones that were supposed to establish resources. So I had a hard time not trying to network because I always was able to establish resources, connects, and different plugs out there because I learned at a young age with the Black Widow how to establish my own sources and not rely on any other seats because that's the only way you're going to make money is if you establish your own resources and don't rely on the regiment. Because if I'm working for the regiment, I'm out there part of the regiment, then I'm going to get my own sources. I'm just going to kick in money. And so it was a little bit different though. So I was out there working with Salinas at that time. And I functioned under, this is how long I was out there. I functioned under 4 different regiment commanders, bro. You know what I mean? Straight. You know what I mean? I functioned with Box, of course. Then I functioned with Smokey, right? And then I was under Bubba, and then I was under Wino. So I was functioning under all these different C's at that time, man. And it was a trip, man. I mean, and I met a lot of, and the thing that I liked about Salinas, right? I went out there to a couple meetings where it was just me and maybe I'd come out there a couple times. I went out there with Gonzo from Livermore because he was plugged in with them too. And we would go out there and we'd maybe meet one or two C's, nobody else. They kept us totally isolated from the rest of the regiment. And everyone that was working with me and the crew that we had, because they had a couple of us that were on the books, but everything was being processed through me. Everyone we had working for us, we didn't have to relinquish anything about their information or their security. So everything was close knit. You know what I'm saying? As far as our security, I never knew. I was out there under Salinas. I didn't know half the crews that they had out there. You know, it wasn't necessary. And so I always liked how much security that the Salinas regiment had. And so I wasn't out there having to be involved in the street politics. You get what I'm saying? And I noticed with Salinas, we already knew it was hot biz out there. You know what I'm saying? As far as there was a lot of attention out there because of the Raymond Sanchez hit and the stuff that happened with MC and all that. You know what I mean? I'm at the backlash of all that. You know what I'm saying? And, I was out there to assist them and help them build their regiment up financially. You know what I mean? As they were restructuring the regiment, they knew I was a moneymaker and they knew everybody that was working with me. We pushed a lot of product. So our sole responsibility was to push their product that they were getting into kicking our monthlies. And that was our job, man. And it was different because I functioned with the San Jose regiment other times after that. And like I can say about the San Jose regiment is they got a lot of money. They made a lot of money. They established a lot of resources, right? But there was a lot more gossiping. There's a lot more internal conflict. There's a lot more this going on. That's all out there in the streets. Whereas when I was working with Salinas, you know what I mean? There was a lot of things that were a lot less contained. Like there was a lot less information that was breached to me. You know what I'm saying? And a lot less things that I knew of. Yeah, I was out there and I knew everything that was going on with the other regiments in San Jose, which isn't supposed to happen, which is a breach of security, but that's just how it was. And like I said before, the time period of everything that was going on, it was all about generating money. We were all expendable. We were all on borrowed time out there. Let's leave you out there and make as much money as you can until we all get hemmed up.
Yeah, I didn't have no experience with them on the streets other than assisting them on acquiring some items that they were having trouble coming by. Being that I was plugged in with or Mexican Mike was plugged in with me. But I met a lot of those guys in the 6 yard. You know what I'm saying? And hey, Powder. A funny story about Powder, man. I actually met up with him one time when they had already put me on freeze, and he was telling me 10 G's would make it better and I could come back home and nobody'd hold a grudge or nothing, you know what I mean? And Powder was cool, bro. I liked Powder, bro. He was a good dude, man. But yeah, I know Chico, man. Chico, I spent a lot of time on the 6 yard with him. I know DK, Pocky, Vince Garcia, who, we did a story about recently being hit in Santa Rita. But man, anytime I ever went to the 6 yard, man, Salinas was fully represented, bro.
Yeah, I can sit there and name like, okay, I've been around Chico, I've been around Chente, Fish, Suave, Powder, Bubba, Wino, Pocky. I've been around Fred Dog. I mean, there's so many different C's that I've literally been around from Salinas. It's like, I think I've been around more C's from Salinas. I'm probably forgetting about 5 or 6 right now off the top of the head. And individuals that became C's later on that were just bros at the time.
Yeah, real quick, man, because we only got about 3 minutes left of recording on this video, man, with our capabilities right now. I was Cellies with Wino, with Juan Gallegos for, when I was next door to Tibbs for a long time. And even the people that I haven't met in person, I almost feel like I know them because I had so much, me and when you're Cellies with a guy, man, you trade stories back and forth all day, man. So like before I'd even met some of these people, man, I knew how they got down. I knew all this. And it's just like we were saying at the beginning, man, them guys are a different breed, bro. I mean, they are the standard, man. And that's just the only way, you can look at Salinas, man, the homies coming out of there, their education level, their conduct, their professionalism, their eagerness to assist, man, that's why Salinas has the reputation it does, straight up.
I have to agree, man. I mean, the quality of NR soldados, North Daniels, and NF members I've met out of there they were righteous. They were sharp, man. There's very few that the ones that did end up in bad terms usually was a bad situation. You know what I mean, you know, I mean, I seen all that coming with Suave. I mean, Suave was as intelligent as Suave was, which, you know what I mean, I heard he's out now, which is good for him. You know what I'm saying? You could tell that he wanted to be that guy. So I could see what happened when they all caught that one hit. He wanted to make that call. He wanted to be part of it because that's the kind of, this is how I felt. This is just my perspective of me dealing with Suave, was that's how he wanted to perceive himself as that man. You know what I mean? So I've always kind of questioned, like, was that call that happened when Raymond just pushed because he wanted to do it, because he wanted to be that guy? Was it necessary? I mean, no one ever looks at the cause and effect and you end up taking someone out. You know what I'm saying? When those things happen, every time, whether it was MC, Brown Bob, Raymond Sanchez, numerous other people, there's a backlash, a domino effect of people getting indicted and people flipping, man. You know what I'm saying? So these organizations have to take a look back before they make these certain calls. Like, what's the end result of these situations? How bad is it going to happen? You know what I mean?
That's always the last resort, man. That action right there that was taken in that situation, that's got to be a no. You have no other choice but to kind of thing. If you want to if your focus is success on the streets, that has to work hand in hand with that, because you're not going to have success on the streets if you deal with every problem in that fashion, because you're going to get shut down. It's going to happen.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. All right, you too, man. This is our first episode about Salinas, man. We probably we got one, maybe even two more, you know, but we can only record an X amount of minutes at a time. So we're gonna go ahead and end this right now. This is your boy Rojo. I'm joined with the homie Flacco as always, man, and we'll see you again.
Convicts Perspective. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, man. Always coming with that fire content, man.
Yes, indeed. All right, ladies and gentlemen.